Today we're going to go in the SketchUp digital woodshop and we are going to design cabinet drawers. We're going to do the work on one and then show how we can scale it to fit all different sizes to leverage the time we spend on designing the one drawer. And also we're going to use dovetails, and I'll show you a really neat automation in SketchUp to make these dovetails very easy to make and to repeat. Also, since we're in here, I'm going to do a little extra and kind of pretend we're down cutting wood and getting a little sawdust in our hair and show you the production techniques I use to make these drawers very efficiently. When you're doing cabinets, you're going to spend a lot of times making drawers, probably more making drawers than any other thing. So let's jump right in. Start with a dovetail. Let's point out that you see that they are not lined up perfectly here. I don't do that in SketchUp in the design. I do that in the field, but I wanted to have this to remind me to tell you why I do this. When you set up a dovetail, when you cut the depth of the sockets or the length of the tails, you do that to the thickness of the material you're using, whether it's your standard hardwood 5/8 or whether you're using like a 12mm plywood, say an apple ply, which is pretty common and what I use most of the time. So you would set up the depth of the cut in that case for say 12mm. And in this case, this is 5/8, so it would be 16mm. But you want to bump it a little deeper than that when you're actually making your cuts. So I use a laid dovetail jig and I offset the cut just a little bit so that the tails and the pins, even though they're not showing it here, stick out just a little bit. And I'm talking a 32nd or less, or 1/2 millimeter or less. And that is so that we can tap the joint together and then we can sand it so that it's flush. It's very difficult to get it perfect. And if you go the other way so that it's recessed, that doesn't look very good. Dovetail is made up of pins, of tails, and of sockets. And how do you tell them apart and how do you use them? If you see rectangles, then you are looking at the tails. If you look at your mating piece and you look at straight on, you are seeing, instead of rectangles, you're seeing these angled cuts. These are the pins. And then these spaces between the tails, those are your sockets. Your sockets are where the pins fit into. What we want to do is run the tails front to back, not side to side, front to back. And that way, when we pull on this drawer, then the back of the joint, the pin is wider at the back. And so it's a self-tightening joint, so it will not come loose. If we did it the other way, if we rotated it around and made the sides here with the tails, we've made that the front of the drawer and the pins on the side, you can see that the joint then is, even though it's an angle, it's the same angle all the way across, and so this joint could pull apart. So we get our strength from running the tails in the orientation to oppose the force of the pull. So think about that for your drawers in this case, but in any joint you're putting together, think about in the direction that the stresses are going to be on the joint and make sure you run the tails in that direction. Okay, let's jump down in the wood shop and let's talk about the production methods that we're going to use. We're going to be cutting a lot of parts, and so we want to set up the saw and cut as much as we can at one time and move on to the next operation. So the first thing I want to do is cut all of my drawer box sides and fronts to the height that I want. So I might have 6-inch drawers, I might have 4-inch drawers, I might have 8-inch or 10-inch drawers. So I'll figure out the number of drawers I'm going to have and rough out the lineal footage of sides, fronts, because they're the same at this point. There's no differentiation between a front and a side. I'm going to figure the lengths I need and just overall gross out. So if I'm using 12mm plywood, they're going to be 8-foot lengths. So I'm going to go ahead and hit the T key for tape measure, and I'm going to go 8 feet. And then I am going to know that this is 12mm, so I'm going to grab my tape measure tool again, come this way, and I'm going to type in 12 millimeter. And now I have a nice little outline here to draw from. I'm going to hit the R key for rectangle. and I'm going to snap there and go all the way to here. And then I am going to get into this space, into this surface, and I'm going to hit the push-pull P key, pull up, and I'm going to go 6 inches. Now I would repeat this for how many ever pieces of this I would need to make all of the 6-inch drawers. I do the same thing for 4s, 8s, 10s, etc. Next operation, I've got all of my heights of my sides and fronts cut. Now I'm going to do another common operation to all of them. That is to cut the dado along the bottom that traps the bottom of the drawer, which is, in my case, always a 1/4 inch or 6mm plywood. Now I come up from the bottom. I want to make a dado, so I'm going to come up from the bottom 6mm. So I'll hit my T key for tape measure, come up 6, just come up and type in 6mm. I could type in 1/4 inch as well. And then I'm going to come up from there to make the actual dado another 6mm. And now I'm going to drop this dado in, and it's going to be 6mm deep. So I've got 6 up, 6 up, 6 deep. I have made the stock that I'm going to cut to length. And again, I'd have all different heights and stuff. I'd rough all this out. I'd have all the stacks of material that look exactly like this, only varying in heights. The next operation is I would come in and start cutting to lengths. We're going to cheat a little bit here, and I'm going to hit the tape measure tool, and I'm going to grab on here, and I know that my sides in a 24-inch deep cabinet are going to be 22 inches. So I'm going to just come back here and type in 22, enter. And what I would do then is set up my miter saw, and I would cut all of these sides, and then I would cut my fronts and backs to their lengths based on the width of the cabinet, whether it's 18s or 24s. So what I'm going to do in this case, instead of cutting them, I'm going to just push-pull this to the right length. P for push-pull. I'm going to go and just snap it right to that. And then what I would have in the real world, it would look something like this. I would grab this, move, M key for move, tap the Option key to get the plus sign for copy, and I would come down, grab on that end, and come there, and I would go X for, X3. So I would get 4 pieces out of that and have a little bit left over. So this is where I would set up my miter saw with 2 different stops, and I may get 2 fronts and 2 sides out of a piece, because at this point there's no difference in a front or side other than the length of it. The fronts and the backs will be a different width of material because based on the thickness of the cabinet sides we use and the hardware. So in this case I'm going to use a standard 21.5. So I'm going to just bring this T for tape measure, bring this over, type 21.5, enter, and then I am going to just push-pull P right to there. So now I have my front and my side to the right length. I'm going to lay out my dovetail. Now dovetails are pretty magical. They don't have to be symmetrical. You can have short ones and tall ones. You can be very artistic. But for my drawers, I like to be symmetrical, and I also like to avoid having my dovetails go into the dado, so I will lay this out with that in mind. So I know that 6 up and 6 up is 12, so I'm going to hit the tape measure tool, and I'm going to come 2 millimeters above that, so I'm going to type in 14 millimeters, and I'm going to do the same from the top, come down 14 millimeters. And now I have the space I'm going to do my dovetails. Now what I want to do is lay them out evenly, so I'm going to grab one of these lines. I'm going to hit the move tool, the option to make a copy, and I'm just going to bring this in the blue direction and snap it right to that other line. And now before I do anything else, I'm going to hit the backslash key for divide, and I'm going to pick an uneven number. I know in a 6-inch drawer I typically do 5, so I'm going to type in 5, and that gives me the layout spacing that I want. Now what I want to do is know how deep I'm going to make. These are going to be the tails, so I want to know how deep I'm going to make them. So I'm going to hit the tape measure tool. I'm going to come back in, and I'm going to come back in 12 millimeters. And this again is where I'd be slightly deeper in the field just to make the tails stick a little bit proud. The next thing I want to do is set up the angles for the tails. I happen to use 8 millimeters because of the type of bits I use and the setup I use. So you want to check on your dovetail bit that you use and see what the angle is. But 8 is pretty common. So I'm going to grab the protractor tool. I'm going to start on the back, the taller side of the joint. I'm going to click once, click again, click down, and then type in 8. Same thing here. And then I've skipped the top one. I went to the second one. Skipped the third one. Jump down. Click, click, click. 8. Now I have my layout that I want to cut out the tails. And so I will just go into this surface here, highlight it, hit my line tool, and I've got 3 lines to draw on each one. Just click right where it intersects. Click again. Click again. Click again. And you can see, I know I've done the right thing because it has broken that surface up. If this color didn't change, then I know that I'm not in the group and I need to go back and redo it. So same thing here. Click on that surface, hit the P key for push-pull, push back and touch this line here. And then I'm going to just double click. Now I don't have to do that again. Double click, double click. And now I have on my side, I have the tails cut and the sockets cut exactly how I want them. So now I want to do it on the other end. Now with just 3, I could quickly go over and redo those, but I'm going to show you a different way. What if I were doing a 10-inch or 12-inch deep drawer and had lots of these that I want to save a little bit of time? So this is how I do that. Click the first time and that line is blue. Then I hold the shift key and click on each one, and that adds to my selection. If I were just clicking without holding the shift key, it would just be reselecting and forgetting the last selection. All right, so now I've got them all highlighted in blue. I'm going to tap the M key for move, tap the option key to get the plus. If I didn't have the plus and I went to do this, you can see what would happen. It would start to change the shape. So I'm going to hit Command Z to back up. Tap the option key for plus and you'll see that it'll move a copy of it. So I'm going to go in the red direction and go a little past. These are facing the wrong direction. I want to have a mirror image of them. So with them all selected in blue, I'm going to grab the rotation tool, which is just like the protractor tool, except it's the double red arrows. And I want to be in the blue direction. And sometimes it's hard to get there. If that were the case, it's not now, but I could find a surface in that right direction, hover on it, and lock that in. But so I've got the blue, and I'm just going to click there, and then do this rotation. And again, I'm looking at the number in the lower right-hand corner to make sure that it's 180. I'm not trusting the visual cues here. Grab this and just go back in the red direction. I'm going to hold Shift, and I'm going to lock right onto that line there. So I didn't even really need this guideline because I was able to reference the front. And so now I'm going to hit the P key for push-pull. It's remembered, so I'm going to just double tap. I haven't done anything else, so it's remembering the last step. All I need on the other side, hit the M key for move and the option key for copy. And I'm just going to grab this, move it over in this direction, and then I need it to be rotated. So I'm just going to grab the rotation tool, and now I have my sides. So sides are non-handed. Front edge and the back edge are identical. They can be flipped around. So all of your sides, as far as your 6-inch sides, they're all the same. All the 4-inch sides are the same. Kind of nice for production. Now we need to make the front. So what I want to do is put it in position just like it would be when the joint is complete. And then I'm going to use a tool from SketchUp that helps speed things up and makes making dovetails very easy. And if there's one takeaway from this video, it's this tool. It's one of the solids. It's the lower left hand. And if you hover over it, it says trim. You click on that. Then first click on the board with the shape on it you want. So you can use this for a lot more than just dovetails. I'm going to click on that, and then I'm going to click on the mating piece, And now, through the magic of the digital world, you can see that I have perfect pins cut to align up with the sockets with just simply 2 clicks. I want to make this a mirrored version of this on the other end. Before, I was able to copy just one side and take it over and flip it around, but because these are angles, taller in the back than in the front, I'm not going to be able to do it that way, so there's a different method. What I'm going to do is come in to this component, and I am going to completely surround that end going left to right. Very critical, I'm choosing the bounding box left to right. Get a different result if you go right to left. I'm going to tap the M key for move and the Option key to copy, and I'm going to move it down again in that red direction. And the next thing I need to do is I need a mirrored version of this. I can't spin it around, that wouldn't work, because that would change the tall to the front. We need to keep the tall in the back. So I'm going to hit the S key for scale. I'm going to grab this middle green box, turns red. I'm going to go the other way. Notice the dimensions in the lower right-hand corner on the green scale. I'm going to go to -1. It will snap to -1. And now I have exactly what I need. And now all I need to do is move it into position. So I'm going to grab the M key for move. I'm going to grab this outside point. Got it in the green direction. I'm going to hold Shift. Go right to that edge. It snaps into place. And now I have exactly what I need. What I want to do is I want to knock out the top. You can see the ones to match up with the other side. Now, the push-pull works a little different here. You've got some limitations. If I highlight on this surface and I hit the P key for push-pull, you notice I can't push in. I can pull out, but it stays straight. Same problem on the other side. If I push-pull, it'll pull out, but when I push in, it leaves that angle at the bottom. So it's not going to go up or downhill. But on the end, I can do it, no problem. So I am going to push in on this top and touch that surface. That's exactly what I want. Then I'm going to skip one, double click, skip one, double click, and skip down and double click. Little cleanup, and I should have done this before I moved and copied. But this little area here is made because of this Dado, and in the real world, we're not doing that. That would not be there. So just in the digital world, I want to get rid of that. So I'm going to go into that space, click on that surface, push, pull, push back, and click on that line and get rid of it and get rid of it. And if I had done that to begin with, I'd be done. But because I copied it over, I've got the same thing to do on the other side. I have my 2 sides and I have my front. Now I want to make a back. Now back is almost identical to the front. In fact, I make my backs and fronts in the shop just like this. So I would have my backs and they would look like this. And then I would set up the table saw to do one more operation. I find this to be more efficient than making the backs narrower to begin with. This is just the way that I do it. A little bit of wasted material, but I just find it to be very productive. So I'm going to grab this, move, copy, and then I need to spin it around because I want the Dado facing in and I want the tall part of the pins to be in. Now here's where the modification comes. These Dados trap in my 6mm plywood on 3 sides. I don't have them trapped on the back. I slide in my plywood and then I tap a couple of pins in to hold it in place. I do not glue my bottoms. Some people do, but I just have had better luck with letting the bottoms float so that as the sides and the bottoms move differently, I'm not going to have any problems down the road. So all I really want to do is just cut this off all the way across. So I'm just going to come in here, and this is exactly what I do on the table saw. I set up the fence so that I rip this off right at the top of the Dado. So I'm going to go all the way down to the other end and let it go. Sides cut in all of my fronts and all of my backs cut in all the different heights. I can then lay them out in kits and start to assemble them and then make the bases. Now my shop would be full of all of these boxes, all assembled and ready to go and ready for the bases to be slid in. So I would set up my track saw and start cutting the 6mm plywood. All of the drawer boxes assembled and all of my bases cut, then I would just simply slide them in from the back, right into position, and then I would put a few pins across the back here just to keep them in place. Now, what if you want to now leverage some of this work to make more 6-inch drawers, but instead of 24, you want to make them, say, 30? Well, we know the sides are going to be the same, so we're going to just change the front, the back, and the bottom. So come in here, I've made a copy of it, and I will hit move to get this out of the way, because that doesn't change. And what I need to do is elongate the front and the back. Go into this component and I hit scale, and I grab that middle one again, and I scale it. Looks great, except one problem. It scales everything. So you can see that the sockets, the tails, are also scaled a bit longer. So that won't work. So how do we do it? To this component, I'm just going to grab the end. Again, I am grabbing from left to right. So now I'm going to tap the move tool, not the copy, just the M, because all I want to do is move this out. And you can see that it makes everything follow. And so now I have my front the length I want, and I can now do the same thing here. Grab this end, tap the M key for move, get going in the proper direction, the green direction, hold the shift key, and now I'll just touch this end here, and I know that it will be lined up perfectly. Well, I hope you got something out of working in SketchUp in the digital woodshop with me. Remember that when you're working out in the field or down in the shop, every cut you make, every door you hang, every cabinet you set, you only get paid to do it once. Once you hang that door, you don't get paid to hang it again. You got to hang another one to get paid again. The cool thing about the digital world, if you learn how to leverage it, it pays you over and over because you put the time in once and then can use copies of that work over and over again. And believe me, taking a little time to learn the software will save you a lot of frustration, a lot of material, and a lot of time in the field, and ultimately make you more profitable. Hey, if you like these videos on the digital woodshop, SketchUp, give me a thumbs up, give me a comment, let me know what you'd like to see. Every job I do starts in SketchUp and a lot of them end in SketchUp. Give me a thumbs up, subscribe, share the channel with others, and if you want to support the channel, besides purchasing some of my plans, you can also use my Amazon store, which you'll find in the link down below. Thanks for taking the time to watch. Have a great day.